Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So, as I have mentioned, that I have entitled this particular lecture as India's freedom struggle and its role in national reconstruction. So, before I move on to the presentation, I would just like to have a dialogue with the young minds who are present in this forum. So please tell me that what do you think that India's freedom struggle, what is it has given you, or how you perceive it? How you perceive it, means how it has contributed to your development. If anyone can highlight, let us start with a kind of a dialogue. Then I will start the presentation. If anybody is willing, or if anyone, wants to express their opinion, because it is a topic that we have been studying since our school days. So I think all of us are aware about it. And this movement has laid, as I have said, the foundation of modern India. So if anybody would like to opine that what this movement or how this movement has, has a impact on our, social existence. If anybody is willing to explain, if anyone, any opinion, any kind of idea on it. Okay, so let me start with it, and then maybe when the discussion starts, then we can, have so many interaction, or interaction will automatically follow. So, you see, this India's freedom struggle, if we see the entire trajectory, we will find that there are so many factors actually which has played their role in the entire what should I say, that in the entire saga of this freedom struggle. And this freedom struggle is especially marked by the advent of colonialism in Indian soil. So let me just give you a brief background of uh, what has been India before the arrival of the colonial rulers. The idea of India as such was not existent at that point of time. India has always witnessed some kind of invasion. India has always witnessed some kind of migration. And it is also said in the sociological parlance that in India there is no single race. We find movement and migration of people from different corners of the world since ages. Even the Aryans migrated to India. There are very few indigenous communities that had been residing in India. So, this entire concept, or the entire notion or discourse, I would say, about the arrival of the colonizer or the colonial rulers added to the diversity. Okay. At one instance, it was a kind of a struggle, and at the other side, it is something that has shaped India, the modern India. Okay, so let me start with the background of Indian freedom struggle. And at the very outset, I would like to mention you that my approach in this lecture would be how the freedom struggle has moved on, and with that, what are the other developments that we have witnessed in India and how it has shaped in the entire national reconstruction. There is nothing separate that national reconstruction I would be discussing in the post independence era because of the paucity of time and all that. So it will be something, we will be moving in a parallel direction. Okay. So the entire freedom struggle, if we see, okay, it started with the advent of the Britishers or the colonizers, as I have said. And at that time, it was the East India Company. And the East India Company came to India for trade and commerce, like other, groups or other colonizers, like the French, the Dutch, and the Portuguese. But unlike the other colonizers, unlike the French or Dutch, they were successful in establishing their regime in India, which was political in nature. Okay, and it was only possible because of the fragmented nature of monarchical structure that existed in Indian society at that time, because by that time the Mughal Sultanate was in a very very weak structure. Okay, after the demise of Aurangzeb, we don't find that such kind of statesman could, have a leadership quality which could integrate the entire community residing in India. So it was a golden opportunity for the Britishers to, establish their regime and their reign, and they were successful also. And it was the Battle of Plassey that ultimately gave them a very good opportunity to establish their rule. So, what we find is that this entire policy of colonialism was based on annexation. Okay, they were, after they established their economic power, they tried to grab the political power also. And this annexation policy was spreading, and it spreaded to the whole of India. Okay, to the whole of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, even we know that the by the Treaty of Yandabu, entire Assam and Northeast also was annexed by the Britishers, because they were here for business, and their only motto was to find out the means through which they can make profit. Profit maximization was the main policy of the East India Company. Okay, and the things started changing afterwards, which I will be discussing in the subsequent slides. Then the next point is that transubstantiation from trade to rulers, traders to rulers. Okay, so this was again another important, we can say that the kind of stepping stone towards the British Raj in India. Okay, they started from traders and then they became the rulers, and it took almost 200 years. We know that the Britishers rule in India around 200 years. But before that, it took another 200 years to establish their regime in India. Okay. And another thing that we find here is that as the Britishers established their political control in India, there was massive discontent of the local rulers and the peasantry. Okay, because India from the very, very beginning was based on agriculture. It was an agrarian society, and the Britishers imposed, various kinds of taxation and the revenue policy that were existent at that time, contributed to the discontent of the peasantry and the local rulers. So it was a kind of background of the freedom struggle. Okay, it didn't started in a single day. Okay, it took some time. And another very important point here that I need to mention is that there was a kind of racism which we find in the entire struggle, because we know that race is something that has been a source of conflict in many regions or in the entire globe. We have seen the movements against race. So as the Britishers were from a different race, and due to their skin color and many other factors, they were considering the Indians, at a very, very low, a lower esteem. So this again was another factor that laid the foundation for a struggle against such kind of tyrannous rule. The next slide depicts the struggle. See, there have been innumerous struggles and uprising against the
Excuse me,
British
ma'am.
rule. Yeah,
Excuse me, Dr. Susanna. I would request you to put it on the slideshow mode. Um, slideshow mode.
okay,
There
okay.
down below.
Is it all right now? Is it okay?
Yeah, and, if you could put it in the slideshow mode, the fourth icon, it's
Just
visible, but
yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah.
is
I
not
got
coming.
it.
I think it will
I
work.
got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a moment, okay? Is it okay?
Yes, yes,
Hello?
it's visible now. Thank you.
Okay. So here you see that, as I had been saying, that there had been so many struggles or uprising that I think we cannot accommodate here. But some of the major events that, where we can say that that can be referred as a movement of resistance against the colonial rulers or the colonial rule, I have tried to identify or put it here. Okay, so the first organized movement, uh, the first three slides actually, these are, we can say, or which is referred as the first war of independence, and that is the revolt of 1857. It was a revolt which was based on some kind of religious factors. Okay, I think all of you are aware that because of the kind of news and rumors that were spreaded in the soldiers or in the regiments about the cartoons and all that. So it formed the basis of Sepoy Mutiny, and it is regarded as the first war of independence. Okay, and this war of independence ultimately ended the rule of East India Company, and the administration and governance of India directly went into the hands of the Queen of England. Okay, so this has been a remarkable, what should I say, point in the entire rigmarole, in the entire journey of India as a nation, because the political structure was systemized at that point of time. And it was a time when we found that an organized governmental structure, which was already functioning in the West, was also developing in India. Okay, the rule of the governor, then so many other institutional developments took place. So it is something that really contributed to the national reconstruction in one way. Another important event was the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919. This has been also of a huge impact in Indian society. Okay, and it was something that somehow we can say that it was a kind of attempt where we find that a kind of genocide, or we can say that a kind of violence which targeted the children, the women, the weaker section of the society, and it was something that a major kinds of human rights violation. And this events and this kind of atrocities ultimately led to the organization of movements, led to the organization of different kinds of agitations, okay, which developed the concept of rights in Indian society, which were earlier non-existent. If you just analyze the monarchical system, or the time of monarchy and the time of during this freedom struggle, you will find a remarkable difference. What was the difference? The difference was the evolution of the consciousness about rights among the people, because India at that time was not educated, but the kind of that innateness towards rights we witness during these movements. We find that people who were illiterate, or who maybe they were educated through the indigenous means, and education was something that was confined to a particular group in the society, because that education was something that the upper caste could only access or could avail, and the other caste were not entitled to such kind of education. But we find this kind of resentment. The resentment was signifying the inner arch for rights, and it is only possible because of the kind of situation that emerged during that phase of time. So that is something that contributed to nation building. The idea of one nation, one community was developing from there. Before that, all the kingdoms were quite separate, though we had only one important bond, that was religion. Hindus were united, the Hindu rulers were united on the line of religion, the Muslim rulers were united on other lines. But we don't find that kind of unification before that. Even we find so many tribal uprisings in the northeast also. Okay, there are so many uprisings that took place in Garo Hills, in various other parts of northeast India. So tribals also joined the movement. So it was a kind of movement that was unifying people. Okay, what we say India, actually those were the milestones that structured the idea of India. Okay, so next important slide, or the next important point is, as I have entitled it, is as freedom movement and its analog. Okay, as I have said you earlier also, that here I won't be discussing the freedom movement all alone, that what has been this we have studied since school days. We know that what are the things, but what has been the parallel development or the consequent developments with this freedom struggle? We know that England at that time was already witnessing modernization due to industrial revolution. There was so much happening, okay, in the West, as far as the revolution in literature, science, and all those things were going on. And during this British rule, we find that with the migration of those people from the other continent, they brought with them the idea of modernity. Okay, so the first important point is evolution of modernity, and it is really acclaimed by very, very renowned historians in India that if British invasion had not taken place in India, we would not have got this kind of modernity. The idea of modernity was something that was initiated by this colonial regime. Okay. Now the question is, what is modernity? Okay. Modernity means a change in the outlook, change in the lifestyle, change in the social, setting. That is something modernity. Because the this point I would come though later on, but here I would like to mention, in 1835 Macaulay's minute came, and it preferred for English education. Okay, English should be the medium of education. So those people who were something well to do, they could get the exposure towards the literature, the philosophy, the Western philosophy, and it is something that influenced them. And in some of the discourses it is mentioned that this colonial or this freedom struggle or the colonial regime, at one go it is something is narrative of atrocities, and at the other end it is the same uh, kind of regime or reign that created a class of youth who ultimately led the freedom struggle. So it's something binary, I would say. Okay, it's something that moved along. We cannot say that it happened, or it was something that was completely negative. It is something that made us aware. It's something that created a kind of renaissance, okay, in the Indian society. So the second point, as I said, rise of intellectual class. Okay, this was a class of Indians who were English educated, okay, who could see the difference between the social system in India and abroad. They could compare, because education is something that opens our mind, and this was a kind of system that helped them to look into the what should I say, the darkness that was prevailing in Indian society. Okay, and you see these points are actually interrelated. One comes really after another. So this class actually led the social reformation. What kind of social reformation we are talking about? The social reformation was especially in the field of the kind of practices that were prevalent in Indian society at that point of time. Sati Pratha, I think all of you are aware about that. Okay, it was a system where women had to be burnt alive. Can you imagine what kind of situation that was or that had been? And that was a Christian practice in Indian Hindu society. And if those reformation had not taken place, then I don't think that this process would have been eliminated. Even today, I would just like to, exemplify and relate. In many of the places in Northeast India and Assam, we find that witch hunting and this kind of things are going on when women are being accused of being the witch, and they are, that what happens to them. I think all of you have studied these things in the newspapers. So you can see the kind of social uh, orthodoxness or orthodoxy that were part of Indian society, and on many fronts still it is the part. Okay, so this social reformations actually broke those kinds of stigmas, those kinds of evil practices from our society. Okay, rationality and science. So this was something, you see, that was again we were witnessing at that time. What was this rationality and science? This too I have put in a single line. Why? Rationality means what? When we become rational, we think through reason. Okay, we think through reason. And where from reason comes? Reason comes from science. So science here is not only about discovery. We know that discovery and all those things also happened in India because of it was there in practice. Okay, there were some of the greatest innovations or greatest scientists even before the British rule. But at a massive scale, it started spreading only when this entire system of education and exposure towards such kind of ideas and idioms started developing. So science here is a systematic study or something that is based on cause effect relationship. Okay, so this rationality and science evolved during this phase. Then institutional reformation, we find that the entire structure that I have said earlier also was being reformed, and we find that this kind of reformation took place. Means there was a kind of structural changes like building up of educational institutions, various bureaucratic organizations, then in the sector of health also. So many kinds of institutions were being developed. Okay, so this was again a very very important point which was developing simultaneously with the freedom movement. And here, the last point is resurgence of the idea of a nation. So slowly and steadily, that kind of, sorry, before that, I have missed this one, cultural assimilation. So cultural assimilation and resurgence of the idea of a nation, this too happened during this phase because this was a time, okay, when people started, migrating from one place to another because of the change in the structure of employment, because of English education. We know that the English education was introduced to prepare a group of clerical cadre who could serve the British administration. So there was huge movement, from different parts of the country to other parts. And there is some kind of, I don't know that whether it's myth or reality, that Northeast was something that was a punishment ground transfer for some of the people. Okay, I heard that. I don't know that whether that is true or not. So people from other parts of the country also came to Northeast. So there were cultural assimilation. Okay, we could discover that, yeah, this is something that belongs to us, and that is how the idea of nation developed. Okay, before that, before the evolution of modernity, there was no concept of nation. They were all segregated, all separated. Okay, small kingdoms with minimal kinds of facilities were existing. But this was something that united us. That was something that helped us to discover India. That, I'm saying, or I'm quoting Jawaharlal Nehru, discovery of India. It was something that really helped us. Okay, so with that, some more I have added. Expansion of English education. This was again something we witnessed at that time, which already I have mentioned. Social movements. We find that so many kinds of movements, not only for against the colonial regime, but some other movements for religious reformation, movement against the caste, and some kind of, we can say, gender equality, and so many other kinds of movements also were being going on at that particular point of time. So people started, developing the idea of association and organization. Okay, that what does it mean to be organized, what does it mean to be associated. So this idea again started developing during this phase of time. Establishment of universities, this higher educational institutions. Okay, uh, you will find that some of the universities, okay, were established by the colonial rulers. Okay, so this is something, higher education is something we say that it's the capital of any nation or any soil. So it was something that was initiated during that phase of time. Then emergence of print media. So media, as we know, that is a very, very powerful means of spreading idea, of becoming conscious, of becoming aware. So this print media was also evolved at that time. Some of the major newspapers, even which are still, being published, were started during that point of time. So ultimately this points, uh, what ultimately that means, it means that India was the nation was developing bit by bit. It didn't happen at one day. Okay, it was slowly, structurally, bit by bit. Okay, it was developing. Which we see today as India was not something that was existent at that time. It developed slowly, gradually, or we can say it evolved to its present form. And these were the factors that contributed to its development. See, today, again, I would like to give some reference in today's context. We find that people are conscious about, everyone's rights. When this pandemic has hit us, we all are, we are somehow reciprocating, we are retaliating. How we can do so, how we are saying that health is something our right. We are saying this because of we are an enlightened society. So this enlightened society has not become in one day. And it is not that you are speaking only about your right, you are speaking about the rights of every community. You are not saying that, these rights only belong to me. You are saying that this is for all. So how these things develop, how these things, germinated, it all started from there. So it is something that has contributed to our development. Okay. So another important event here, that with in line with this association, formation of association and organization, is foundation of Indian National Congress. Okay, in 1885, some enlightened intellectuals at that point of time, and some Englishmen also, like Alan Octavian Hume, A.O. Hume, Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee. They were the some of the elites of that particular society who formed this Indian National Congress. And at the beginning, actually, it was not a political party. Actually, it was actually something, an association for, discussion, or all those kinds of things were going on. But ultimately we find that this organization became the political party of India, which ultimately led the freedom struggle. And the role of Indian National Congress in the entire freedom struggle is extremely phenomenal. Okay, so this is again something that establishment of organization uh, and this formation of INC is something very very important, and which is the legacy of that particular rule. Okay, then next point is contribution of the moderates in the freedom struggle. So those moderates which uh, or who formed those what should I say, that this kind of organization, who were educated, they were able to mobilize the youth. Okay, they were able to create consciousness among the youth about the needs of the society, about the kind of problem that was prevalent in the society. Poverty was something that was even existent in that phase of our society in India. So it was something, they were just not seeking freedom, political freedom. It was economic freedom, it was social freedom, it was cultural freedom also. Okay, so they were successful in establishing or mobilize the youth of that particular society. The next is demand for self rule or Swaraj, a very important, what should I say, uh, important event in the entire freedom struggle. And Swaraj, the term I have put, rather than self rule, this appears to be very, very, what should I say, this term is having huge connotation. So, what is Swaraj? Swaraj means our self freedom. Okay, so this was the idea that again developed during that particular phase of time. Okay, when Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who was an elite from Maharashtra, an educated person, who put forward the demand for Swaraj for the first time. So we can find that these were going on, side by side. Okay, so this freedom movement was entirely a journey where we find so many discourses, so many narratives, and each narrative and each discourse is something where you can go on discussion, or where you can go on discovering the idea of nation building. Then religious reforms, okay, this were also taking place at that time, because there was no concept of integrity. There was no concept of that uh, there should be some kind of fraternity between the religious groups, but it also developed at that point of time. Okay, people started developing or breaking the shackles of religion and all such kind of thing, and which ultimately we find that even today in our society we try to maintain the religious harmony. Okay, emancipation of women, so this is something very very important. Okay, the plight of women, okay, before the colonial rule and during the colonial rule was quite at a dismal state. Okay, there was child marriage. Okay, sati already I have mentioned. Then so many kinds, parda system was there. So entirely women were the the cornered group in our society. There was no exposure, nothing. So it was this system of uh, what should I say, enlightenment or education that helped the male counterpart to bring forth the women, okay, to the forefront. And there we find that women ultimately got empowered, and they somehow contributed to the society. There has been, I don't know, I think many of you have heard the name of Anandi Gopal, who was the first female doctor from India during that period of time. So how it was possible? This rigid society would have never allowed if we didn't have that exposure, if we didn't have that kind of renaissance in our thought process. So this was something we were witnessing at the same time. Fragmenting social stratification. Social stratification, I think you know this thing. in education. I don't know that whether all these students here are from education or they are from other subjects or discipline. Okay, let me just brief you about social stratification. It means division, okay? Division on the basis of caste, class, gender, and all such kind of thing. So Indian society is a stratified society. We know that we are somehow the social status is ascribed, means by birth we are born into a jati. Okay, we are born into a race, we are born into a community. So this jati, system of jati or the jati pratha was so, what should I say, it was draconian, I would say, and it was something so inhuman that plenty of stories are there. I think I don't need to explain them. Just one simple thing in this context I would like to mention. I think all of you have seen the movie Lagan of Amir Khan. Yes or no? Please reply, because sometimes when I go on speaking all alone, I feel that I'm talking to the screen only. Have you seen the movie Lagan? Yes or no? Please reply.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all of you have seen a very famous movie of Amir Khan. Do you remember at that movie there was a character who was from a Dalit community, who was a person. I seek your pardon that he was an untouchable, and people were reluctant to you know uh, uh, take him within the cricket team. I think all of you remembered that character. Do you know that particular character is a real character? Somebody's mic is switched on, so please unmute yourself. I think somebody has switched on the mic. Some disturbance is there. Some sound is coming. Please mute yourself. Yeah, now it's clear. So that particular character was a real character, and that person's name was Palvankar Ballu. Palvankar Ballu. He was from Maharashtra, and he was a Dalit, but he had very good hand in bowling and this entire. Some people are very skilled in some of the things. All of us are skilled and competent in one or the other way. So he was very good in all that. So he was something who used to take care of the field and all that, and in between maybe he was playing with the ball, and some British had noticed him, and he said that you should come into the team. Okay, when he came to the team, the people, the Indian people, the Brahmins who were in that particular team, they resisted at first, but when they couldn't argue much with the Britishers, they agreed to have him in the community or in the team. But do you know that they never had their lunch or dinner with that particular uh, person, Palvankar, because he was from a community, a Dalit community. So this was actually the English endeavor, I would say, that was fragmenting the caste line, and ultimately that led to the Dalit movements, which is still continuing in our society, because the plight of Dalits, the plight of the people belonging to those vulnerable section of the society in some parts of our country is still very very pathetic. And even we find that women from that community are being tortured, humiliated, so all these things happen. So this was something, this fragmentation started from that phase of time. Next one is demand for inclusion. So this was a time when there was huge demand, okay, of inclusion. What kind of inclusion? It was inclusion in the government's ruling system, okay, local self-governing system, inclusion in bureaucracy. Okay, we find that there was a movement that Indians should be allowed for this civil service examination, okay, which earlier they were not allowed. So this demand for inclusion, which even till date we are fighting for inclusion on many fronts. Okay, so it again started during that particular phase of time. So you can see that how this what should I say, that kind of reconstructivist approach that independent India is still accepting and practicing started with all that. Next is emanation of elites and national leaders. Okay, so this leadership quality again was something. Sorry, I couldn't give an elaborate picture. Okay, as I said, that my limitation towards this technology. So just bear with it. So emanation of elites or national leaders. So this national leadership all were educated, English educated. Okay, you may see Mahatma Gandhi, you may see Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, you may see Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, and you may see B.R. Ambedkar. All were, educated, and they were the group who organized the freedom movement, and they studied, the revolutionary leaders, the French Revolution, and those, inspired them a lot. Okay, so here you can see why I have put one picture. You can see below, just the left picture, Maulana Azad, Mahatma Gandhi, and Vallabhbhai Patel. You see that the religious, intermingling that was there, which we couldn't have imagined if this kind of renaissance would not have taken place. There was something, you see, Ambedkar also I have put, who was a Dalit belonging to Mahar community. So entire kind of intermixing, this leadership quality was not only confined to someone from a very, very high or upper caste person. It was something that from all walks of life, from all religion, from all caste, they were emerging. So this is something again we find, okay, a very, very important characteristic of this freedom struggle. Okay, another slide that I have put on here is aggressive nationalism versus non-violent nationalism. So here you can see that it is in line with that. It is in line with that. Okay, this particular aggressive nationalism, which even today also we hear this terminology quite often, and non-violent nationalism is something which has a very, very deep rooted philosophy. Okay, because we find that Indian freedom struggle at a certain point of time was bifurcated. It was bifurcated between the, people who favored armed conflict and people who went for violent means. Okay, so armed conflict is something that was, being propounded, or it was being something people associated with it. I think the legends like Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, Chandrasekhar Azad, Ram Prasad Bismil, they were the people who were actually leading that movement. Okay, and they were the persons, who said, who demanded the rights of political prisoners. Okay, that political prisoners are not prisoners like other prisoners, they have other rules. So they were inspired by Lenin, Voltaire, and those kinds of revolutionary of the West, and those ideology of Karl Marx. So this is, you can see how it all developed. And at another side, we find a very, very sublime, a very kind of what should I say, a concept of satyagraha, which influenced the entire globe. Even the United Nations, okay, uh, considered non-violence as one of its important pillars. So this satyagraha that was propounded by Mahatma Gandhi was something, a philosophy, a movement, which is still, inspiring people. In year 2011, we have seen Anna Hazare leading the movement of anti-corruption, and which was based on the satyagraha. So we can see that how this entire notion of, freedom values, freedom movement values are inspiring us in today's world also. Okay, so I will be a bit hurried because I can see that time, is maybe it will run short. So, national movements under the moderates, again, here you can find arrival of Gandhi. Gandhi was someone who was educated and who was working in South Africa, and there also he led this anti-racist movement, which I said at the very beginning. And that is why even the leaders in South Africa, like Nelson Mandela, consider him as someone, the his influencer. So this anti-racist movement again inspired Gandhi when he arrived in India, and he started satyagrahas, civil disobedience movement, non-cooperation movement, and Purna Swaraj. The philosophy that was propounded by Bal Gangadhar Tilak was further accelerated, and it became Purna Swaraj, means complete freedom. Complete freedom from all kinds of, you know, foreign rules and all kinds of stigmatization. And Quit India movement also, where Purna Swaraj was being, what should I say, that it was completely pronounced loudly. Okay, so these were the movements which even we find that after independence also movements started or movement were organized. Okay, it may be for yesterday was a day when that the renowned environmentalist Sundarlal Bahuguna, who passed away. Uh, and This was a movement, okay, where he was so much associated. I think Dr. Ranjita, who is studying so closely this environment and all that, she also would agree with me. It's a huge loss, and this actually those movements inspired the modern India also. So, dawn of women empowerment. So, this is again something I would say that which I have already said, and here again I have put separate slide for that. I don't know that whether you can read the names and all, but some of the prominent figures I would mention here, like Rani Lakshmi Bai. We find that you know nobody can inspire us even today more than Rani Lakshmi Bai. And same is the case with Rani Gaidanglu, who was from Northeast, from Nagaland. Okay, then Konoklota Borua, she was also from Northeast, from Assam. Okay, then we have plenty of such kind of women leaders, iron ladies, Sucheta Kriplani, then Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. All of them were somehow the birth of a system that we are talking about, the freedom struggle. And here again I would like to mention the name of Sabitri Bai Phule. Okay, Sabitri Bai Phule was a woman who is considered the first teacher of modern female teacher of modern India. And her movement is not only in the field of education but also for caste upgradation. And she is known as the first feminist in India. Okay, she was the feminist. So you can see the kind of isms that developed during that particular phase of time. We have Aruna Asif Ali, we had Captain Lakshmi Sehgal, so many. So the list is endless. Even now we can take the inspiration from that. So this was a phase of that. Then resurgence of spiritual nationalism. This was again something, a phase when we see that religion was not dogmatized. It was quite spiritual. Okay, it was something spiritual, and through spirituality we were trying to discover nationalism or nation. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Dayanand Saraswati, Aurobindo Ghosh, and Swami Vivekanand. Their role in national reconstruction, their ideas, their writings was something that helped to mobilize the youth, to organize the youth, to to look forward to a renewed version of nationhood, or nirman of a Naya Bharat, like that we can say, Nava Bharat. So they were the persons, who were again the, what should I say, that they also developed during that particular phase of time. Okay. Again, we find onset of political social philosophy through literature, poetry, and narratives. So here again, you can find that I have put some names: Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Rabindranath Tagore, Munshi Premchand, and Eni Besant. They were the person. Here you can see that Sayyid Ahmed Khan's quote: when a nation becomes devoid of art and learning, it invites poverty, and when poverty comes, it brings in its wake thousands of crimes. So, what kind of philosophy they had propounded, and what kind of writings they have written, which are still so relevant. So, they all were the product of this particular phase of freedom. If you study Tagore, you will find all kinds of ideas or ideologies. Hello, please mute. Yeah. So we find so many kind of uh, dimensions in his writing. Even his Rokto Korobi here, I would like to mention, that is known as its English transcription is Red Orientals. It's something that depicts, the fight towards torture and atrocity. Munshi Premchand is again a person from Hindi literature who have represented the economic, subjugation, the plight of a ordinary person in, the then Indian society. Eni Besant, a lady who was a pioneer educator and a reformist. So all of them were somewhat, their ideas shaped the modern philosophy, modern education, which still we are following. It was Aini Besant's attempt which ultimately led to the establishment of Banaras Hindu University. She was one of the pioneers in that. So ultimately, the gist of this entire lecture is that this struggle for freedom, how it has helped in national reconstruction. Some of the points you can see. The idea of human rights, it developed in this phase, or what we say human rights or fundamental rights in our constitution. Why the constitution framers gave utmost priority to fundamental rights? It is because of the kind of situation they had undergone. Okay, they know that what does it mean to be devoid of rights. So this kind of deprivation ultimately led to the foundation of fundamental rights or human rights, that is our right to life, our right to freedom, right to equality. Then equalitarianism. Again, we find that the modern India was founded on the principles of equalitarianism or egalitarianism, means a kind of society where every person, irrespective of their gender, their social background, their ethnic background, their linguistic background, have equal rights. So this is again a very, very important concept. Secularism. As I said in the beginning, India has been a home of so many, religious uh, thoughts and ideas. Even Buddhism emerged in India. Okay, so it is a land of religious diversity, and that diversity is represented through secularism, where we preach neutrality in the matter of religion, because the partition, the kind of communal disharmony that were being propagated by the British policy of divide and rule taught us this lesson that secularism should be one of the pillars of Indian democracy. Justice is again the idea that has been given paramount importance in Indian society, and this justice is which means our entitlement, our claim, and that is why when our fundamental rights are being violated, we can go to the judiciary. We have our right to information. Democracy is something that we have adopted because of the kind of what should I say, that a tyrannous rule under which we had been. Social integration is something that has been developed through this freedom struggle. And national identity, the idea or the notion of India or Indian, developed because of this freedom struggle. Okay, and at the end, I would, this is the last slide of mine, which is foundation of India as a nation, which where I have put this preamble, which says that the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economic, political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. So ultimately, the entire constitution envisages the Indian society, which has been reconstructed because of the incessant struggle that had taken place during the last 200 years. And that is why, all this have reconstructed our nation as what it is today, where we are the free citizens, where we can fight for our rights, we have equality of status and opportunity. With this, I am ending my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shukrana, for taking us through the journey of Indian freedom struggle, the formation of India as a nation, expansion of Indian education, problems and challenges the country had to face, and how it had survived through all these, and also how the colonization restructured Indian society. We have understood the movement of freedom struggle and the fight for empowerment, the spiritual nationalism, as we have just discussed, role of great social reformers in national reconstruction, etc. So we see the relevance of all these in our modern society. Uh, the entire deliberation was quite informative, and I really hope that the students have gained a lot from all this. I would now like to request Dr. Amua to say a few words. Dr. Amua, please.
Dr. Ranjita, before we give the vote of thanks, shall we just ask the participants if they have any comments or want to interact with the resource person?
Yes, yes, surely. Participants are welcome to share their views. I can see Dr. Tarini Kumar Datta sir also. Sir, if you like to say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bhatsarji.
Thank you.
And actually, your talk is very excellent,
Thank you,
and
sir.
you have highlighted lot of very, very important and powerful thinking or thoughts. Everything is very nice. But you see that we all the Indian people are very strong in religious concept or scientific concept. We have a very strong literature. We have very strong culture. Everything is good. And as far as our freedom struggle is concerned, lot of Indian people sacrifice a lot to achieve the suppose freedom. And at that time, all the Indian people also united to get the freedom. But still that after freedom, what is the problem in the reconstruction? And so that lot of evil things are going on. Say for example, evil practices against the women is still going on. Or even Indian people are so educated, so civilized, but we don't hesitate to do the corruptions. Not only in corruption is money, say even our, as far as young generation is concerned, not all of them, that we do not hesitate to tell a lie at any moment. We don't hesitate to harm a person at any moment. And what is your idea? Where is the wrong in the education system, or it is the wrong in the government policy? And how we can make reform, and so that we really become a highly civilized people, and all these evil things will go away from our society.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for putting this question. Actually, because of the kind of topic that had been provided to me, I couldn't go beyond the post. I would request others to just mute for a while so that I can answer properly. Okay? Please mute yourselves. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, as Sir has very nicely pointed out, that why even after so many sacrifices, why after having such an elucidative constitution, we are still having a society rampant with corruption. We find agitation, we find separatist movement, we find that there is no kind of what should I say, that value degradation in our society. And even in today's context, I would like to add to what Sir has said, that for our health rights we are fighting, for our right to life we citizens are fighting, isn't it? It's a pandemic. This second wave has shown that how poor infrastructure we are having, even after 7 decades of it is going to be 8 decades. India is not a young country anymore. It's a middle-aged country, but still we are having this kind of situation. So actually, sir, if I had to speak after independence, see, there are so many analyses, so many theories. So on the basis of those studies or whatever I have understood from those discourses, I can say that the framers or the leaders in the post-independence era, they have tried to imitate a kind of a model which was not suitable for India at that point of time. Okay, India adopted a mixed economic kind of system. Okay, it was good, but India pursued a kind of education system. I think Ranjita ma'am is from education and some others are also there. It is said that the first education commission that was constituted in India after independence was the University Education Commission, whereas the primary education is the solid foundation of any education system. If through education we want to bring any change, we need to strengthen the root. But that kind of uh, endeavor was missing. We don't find that primary education was made a fundamental right. Education was under the directive principles of state policies, Article 45. Okay, so the states were not obligated in any manner to make free education free and compulsory. Okay, so this was a very, very what should I say, blunder mistake committed at that time, at that moment, that education was not made compulsory, it was not free. It was only in the 2010, I think, or 2009 that RTA came into existence. Okay, and children from all background, all communities were being brought within the fold of education. Second point, when we talk about education also, we still continued with this colonial venture. Okay, that student teacher bifurcation. We never tried to revive the indigenous values that Indian education system had at that point of time, or some of the core values that we should have incorporated. We could have made education activity based, joyful learning. We could have given space to values. I think if education was restructured, if primary education was accessible to all, these things could have been more better. And coming to the next thing, the kind of atrocities, here again I would say informal education plays a very, very important role. What we can see that our education is theorized. We are only for Marxism. Marxism, I am saying that MARK means 92, 95%. This is something our education signifies. We don't understand that whether we are really educated, whether we have the values within us, whether we are enlightened, whether we are aware. Nobody had asked about this question because there is a race to be empowered economically. Some years back, I attended one lecture in JNU where these things were being discussed in a very detailed manner. That our education wants only, and our ideology, entire ideology and society has become like that, that we want to just throw our kids to a kind of machine, and they come up becoming a machine where they don't have any values, they don't have any kind of humanness. Can you see those pictures where in social media these things are very common nowadays, that somebody has met with an accident and making the video. They are making video. Nobody is bothered about that. That person needs first, first aid treatment. So where this society is, it is because of the kind of policy that had been initiated at the beginning. And I think if we had given primary education, not only primary education, if the philosophy that was the base of education at that point of time would have been something different, then India would not have suffered the way it is suffering. Okay, our values, our orientation should be something different. And education is the greatest weapon, I believe, which can actually fight. And that is why, it is said that India ko अच्छे स्कूलों की जरूरत है. Quality is something not only where you become empowered and you get a job. Quality means you become a human being. You have your human values where you treat. आप लोगों को इक्वालिटी समझाना पड़ेगा बच्चों को थ्रू द प्रैक्टिस. ये इक्वालिटी में डेफिनेशन लिख के नहीं होगा. That always I tell to my students, don't give me any definition that falana has said this about education, equality. इक्वालिटी प्रैक्टिस करो, दिखाओ इक्वालिटी कैसे किया है. If we practice that, I think that something will really help us, and that is something wrong that has happened. So that is my humble submission, sir, for your
Okay,
query.
thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
What is your expectation that all these all odd things will be overcome within a very short time in India, or it will last, say, for a long time?
Sir,
Even for
okay.
okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, actually, everything, if it is a revolution, if we are witnessing a revolution, then I think there may be some structural changes. But if we are going through an evolutionary process, then it will take a long time. Actually, we need to rethink about education. We need to rethink, though we have come up with the national education policy, which is a is an ambitious project, but we need to think that whether our teachers are well equipped to translate that ultimately to the generation next. So this is something, what should I say, I don't have any proper answer that when it will end.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Echo,
Thank you.
hi. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions from the
I think one student asked about Sarojini Naidu. See, I saw that in the chat box. You see, there were so many, so I couldn't mention because I was just having my eyes on the watch because of the time. Yeah, Sarojini Naidu and so many others were there. Okay, so
but
there, yeah,
we could see the picture of Sarojini Naidu
yeah,
there under we're discussing about women
so
empowerment.
many, yeah, yeah.
So I would like to hand over to Dr. Amwa to end the session.
Okay, thank you, Ranjita.
Hello,
Dr. Ranjita.
hello, ma'am. Hello,
Yes.
ma'am. I just wanted to ask you something that you mentioned about the demand for inclusion. Can you just explain me what is actually the demand for inclusion?
See, demand for inclusion, this point I think I have already mentioned. You see, inclusion, do you understand what? It means where everyone is included, okay? And inclusion is a fight. Nobody is going to give you inclusion, okay? Just bringing that in the plate. Inclusion is a demand, it is a movement. So when this entire enlightenment process was initiated in India, okay, by the uh, exposure towards the English education and different philosophy, we find that people became aware. Okay, the people became very, very aware, and they started demanding that we need to be included in the system of governance. We need to be included in decision making. Okay, decision making is something, a power. So they started this entire journey of inclusion. So people, those who were downtrodden, they also started their separate movement. Okay, they also organized. They said, yeah, we also want that age old system of caste and all that thing that should be now broken. We are human beings, we are also equally entitled to all kinds of rights. So they also started demanding inclusion. So inclusion is a system where you are part and parcel of the decision making process, where you are taken, or your ideas and your opinion is accepted and it is taken care of. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions, participants? This has been a very interesting and thought-provoking talk. Thank you very much. As we come to the end of this, I would like to thank some of the people who have been engaged in this. On the onset, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor of this university, Dr. Stephen Mavili, and the Registrar, Dr. Johnny Jones, for allowing us to conduct this program. And then next, I would like to thank in a very special way the resource person, Sriparna Bhattacharya, who is from Assam University. This has been really a thought-provoking talk. Like, it has given a different perspective to the freedom struggle which we have been knowing. Like, after listening to this talk, I would like to even thank the Britishers for coming to India. They restructured the modern India, given a new structure to India, and they brought us to modern India. And also, here I have seen quite a lot of participants actively participating to listening to the talk, as well as we are interacting with the resource person. Especially, we have quite a lot of faculty members among us. So to mention one of them, Professor Tarini Kumar Datta is with us, who is always actively involved in any activities of the university. And also we have quite a lot of faculty members from the Department of Education. I thank you all. And then last but not the least, let me thank all the students who have participated so actively. It has been quite a nice evening in Guwahati area. And this is a little change from the everyday lecture we have been listening from day to day. So I hope this will bring some freshness and a change of thought and change of outlook to the students. And as we are going through a time of struggle through this pandemic, maybe there might be some good changes which will come to us. Like the struggle which we struggled during our freedom struggle, maybe the struggle for freedom from this pandemic also may bring some good change in us. With this hope, I thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I hope,
I'm really honored to be a part of this entire endeavor, and I thank my friend Dr. Ranjita and other faculty members and Tarini Kumar Datta sir. It has been wonderful interacting with you all. Looking forward for some future endeavor also. Okay.
Okay. Thank
So
you
I
very
think,
much. Thank you.
yeah,
thank you
hopefully once the pandemic is over, maybe we may be able to bring to you to our university where
It will be a great
we can
honor.
interact face to face with our students. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much. Thank you. Please take care. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.